Welcome to the Dairy News and Views podcast, a production of the Iowa State University Extension and Outreach Dairy Team. Our podcast covers current educational, research, and industry tools available for your operation to manage healthy cows and calves while producing the highest quality dairy products. For joining us today on Dairy News and Views from the ISU Dairy Team, I'm Jen Bentley, Northeast Iowa Dairy Field Specialist, and today I'm here with a few of my Extension Dairy Team colleagues, State Extension Specialist Dr. Gail Carpenter, our Northeast and Southeast Dairy Field Specialist Larry Tranel, and our Northwest Iowa Dairy Field Specialist Fred Hall, as we visit with our guest, Krishana Kotu, Beginning Farmer Center Director. So welcome back to the podcast team.
Always happy to be here. Yep.
Yeah, so today it's a frigid day in Iowa, but we have some hot topics coming up here in the next couple months, and we wanted to discuss an upcoming farm transition conference being held in Ames. That's coming up on February 6th and 7th, and we wanted to get that in front of our audience because that's a topic that a lot of our dairy producers are interested in, and maybe this date on the calendar will work for some, and we invite Krishana Kotu to explain more about it. But before we do that, Krishana, why don't you tell us more about yourself and your role at the Beginning Farmer Center?
Sure. Thanks for having me on today. I'm happy to talk a little bit about myself and what I'm doing at the Beginning Farmer Center. So a little about myself. I was raised on a dairy farm. I was a fourth generation, and after college actually ran that farm with my dad and grandfather for a number of years before doing other things. In addition to farming myself, I've been involved in professional roles, various professional roles supporting agriculture over the years. I worked as a farm credit loan officer for a few years, which I call my first master's degree because I learned so much in the short time that I was there, going out, working with farmers directly on the farm, helping understand their financial needs and their borrowing needs. I also, while I was on the farm, I started doing the training, but then after I was off the farm, I became a CPA and had a niche practice working with agricultural producers, all different types of farmers, both on the East Coast and then also in the Midwest as well. After that, I ended up going to law school, again, with the focus, surprise, surprise, on agriculture, and have been practicing law in the Midwest for the last 15 years, working with farmers on a lot of different issues, a lot of labor issues, actually, in the last several years, because it's been a need that farmers had. And so we're working through some of that. I joined Iowa State in the Beginning Farmer Center just this fall. And I am absolutely thrilled to be here. It combines my passion that I've always had for agriculture, my passion for helping beginning farmers get started, because I was one of them myself, and also my legal and tax background to hopefully support the next generation of farmers and existing farmers who have questions or concerns or looking at different aspects for their business. So I've been at the Beginning Farmer Center for a few months now. I'm excited about the conference that we have coming up. We've got a lot of great speakers, and also very excited about plans over the next year or two in different ways that we can connect with the farming community, provide some resources, and provide some educational opportunities. So stay tuned.
So for this upcoming program, who's your target audience?
Our target audience is farmers, I say, of all stages and all ages. So all ages are welcome, and all stages in their farming career or in their business. I don't think it's ever too soon to start thinking about farm transition planning. Honestly, I think the best time to start thinking about it is on day one of farming, because the time goes by fast, and the future of each individual farm and even farming collectively is just so important and can be challenging. And so I'm hoping that folks who will attend will be beginning farmers, maybe who are thinking about transitioning into their family business or starting out on their own. And I hope that we'll also have existing farmers who are either starting to think about the transition process or maybe already going through it, and it may be coming up in the next couple of years. We're going to have sessions and discussions that are going to be helpful to all.
What would you think
You
are
know,
some
it-
like the top 3 issues that you're going to be concerned with there at the conference?
Top 3 issues in general terms, and this is kind of how I see farm transition planning or farm succession in general, is education. So it's always important to keep up with the current tax laws, the other laws that may be applicable, keep up with current strategies or tools that can be used in the farm transition process, whether it may be considering forming an entity, such as an LLC or a corporation or something like that, that may help in that transition. And also the use of trusts, which we get a lot of questions about. So that's number one, the education component of it. Number 2, I think it's really important to make connections and network. There's going to be opportunities specifically built into this conference for questions and answers, to interact with presenters and also interact with other attendees. We have for the first time this year, we have a session devoted specifically to ask the experts, or it's a Q&A session that'll allow the audience to ask any question that they may have, either that they're coming to the conference with that question already, or whether it's something that comes up while they're at the conference. And we're gonna devote that time to be able to answer those questions. So that networking and the ability to interact with professionals and also folks who are going through the process, I think is also important. The third thing that I think is really important is more, it's a little broader, and it has to do with communication and thoughts about how the family is part of the process. Because with farm transition planning, obviously we have the business. We know agriculture, it is a business. It's a hard business. It's a rewarding business. But we also have the family component in it as well. And sometimes that part of it can make things a little more daunting, or a little concerning, or a little trickier on how to get the whole transition plan done. So those are the 3 most important things that I think we're going to have at the conference and that folks will enjoy.
we always talk about the sustainability of the dairy industry, and that word means so many things to different people, and it's almost turned into a word that doesn't mean a lot because it means so many things. But to me, one of the things that makes the dairy industry sustainable by definition is being able to continue on from generation to generation. And we've heard from our dairy industry survey that we did this past fall, one of the themes that kind of came back was that folks are wondering about how to transition their farms down to their kids or to the next generation, whatever that looks like for them. And it's never, as you kind of said, it's never too early to start thinking about transition planning, right? So is this something that's kind of open to everyone, no matter how far they're into the process? Will everybody get something out of this?
Absolutely. It's open to everyone. And I believe by the speakers and the presentations that we have on tap, that it really will be beneficial from everyone, from those who are maybe even just thinking about starting farming, to those who might be needing or wanting to transition, right away. It's designed to apply to everyone, to both ends of the spectrum and everyone in between. And especially with the dairy industry, I mean, that's an industry that obviously is close to my heart, because that was my family farm. Like I mentioned, I was the 4th generation there. And, one of the trickiest things for us, and I don't know if other folks find this as well, with the transition planning, especially on a dairy farm, I mean, it's not you don't have a lot of days off when you're milking cows.
Right.
And so, I mean, I remember the long days of working, just to get the chores done, and then trying to devote meaningful energy, time, thought, conversation into what was probably the most important thing for our farm, which was what was the future and how was it going to be transitioned. And that's also why it's so important for me to have the parts where people can talk directly to the speakers and also know that others are in the same boat. Because I just go back to my own personal experience, and I would have benefited greatly from a conference like this, and also just knowing that other people were going through something similar, because it can feel a little lonely at times.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking that too as you were talking. I'm sure, it sounds like you guys have a great program lined up, and the chance to interact with speakers is certainly extremely valuable. But I imagine even just being able to attend a conference with your peers and other people who are kind of going through the same process and being able to talk to other farmers who are in this transition process is probably valuable as well.
I mean, that's what I think. That's why that part of it is so important to me. And every farm is different. Every family is different. Every operation is different. And so while all the general concepts that we're going to be talking about throughout the conference are going to apply to everyone in a general sense, the nuances are going to be different for each individual operation. And I think through one-on-one conversation, that's where a lot of that can really be addressed. Whether it's hearing about how someone else handled something, another farmer handled a tricky situation and how they worked through it, that can maybe spark an idea, or again, whether it's talking to the presenters.
Yeah.
Help me get my head around a couple of words that get thrown out there a lot. Transitioning and succession planning. They the same or are the differences?
Tell you, I use them pretty interchangeably. I mean, succession planning, I think is really talking about the succession of the farm. Oftentimes, maybe it has more of a idea of a family component in it. Transition planning is very similar. If anything, maybe it includes a little bit of a more broader concept of it's not always family who's going to be that. We talk about the next generation. Often that next generation, especially in farming, is a family member who's of a next generation. But sometimes it's not at all. Sometimes it's someone from outside the family who's maybe gonna not just buy the land, but maybe buy into a business so that the business can continue on in some aspect. And honestly, it's not always when we say next generation, it often is the younger generation who's coming in, but I'm seeing this all over the place. There's a lot of people who are going into farming as a second career, and they may not be, in their 20s. They may be going at it from a different perspective where they have experience, they've done other things, but now want to start a farm business. And oftentimes what I'm seeing is that might be the perfect opportunity to take over or get involved with a business that's already in existence.
So I'm going to change the topic a little bit here. We've been talking about the transition program coming up, and you work for the Beginning Farmer Center. So tell me about who comes in as a beginning farmer that you work with.
It really varies, and this is what I love. So we get calls and attendees at our events and stuff from all sorts of beginning farmers. Some are, again, those who are just interested. I'm just going through some of the calls I've received in the last few weeks. A call from a college student who it was not from a farming family, but extremely interested in farming and really wanting to start understanding from a real basic level what opportunities are there for someone who has this interest but isn't from a farm background, but has the desire to do that. Another call was a person who was operating on what she wasn't sure if she was really considered a business or a hobby at this point, and wanting to understand the differences and how to really build into a business that's more sustainable or an actual business enterprise. And that was not someone who was in school. It was someone who was doing it in addition to another career. We have folks who are wanting to transition into their family farm and trying to understand maybe what's the best way to do that, because the generation ahead of them hadn't done any planning yet. And so they're trying to understand what part they can play in it, and how to enter the farm in the most successful manner. So really, it's from all different, it's a wide variety of people who are coming to us, and a wide variety of industries within agriculture, whether it's specialty crops. We've had calls from urban farmers, from folks who want to do urban farming or who are already doing it, from larger operations as well. So really any most of the industries within agriculture, I feel like we're getting the calls about those issues.
So, Krishana, as I look at the Beginning Farmer Center webpage for the Farm Transition Conference, it looks like attendees are able to come in person or maybe attend virtually. So could you provide some registration details where they can get more information in case they have questions or want to sign up to register?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and thank you for mentioning that. Yes, we have an in-person component, or there's also an option to attend virtually. I would love to see as many people there in person as we can. So if people are on the fence, I hope that you consider attending in person. But the virtual option, we haven't always had that, but the last couple of years we've had have. I think that's an excellent opportunity as well for folks who simply can't get to the conference in person. The virtual option the way we're going to run it is kind of like a webinar. So there'll be opportunities to ask questions as well. So it's not that the webinar participants will just be out there watching. They'll also be able to interact during the conference and have their questions or comments answered or provided as well. Registration details and where you can register is on the Beginning Farmer website. It's beginningfarmer.iastate.edu. And all the information is right there to register online. We do have an early bird discount. So for folks who can register before January 30th, we'd really love for you to do that. And we're going to give you an incentive for doing that as well. The cost is $175 in person and $150 for the webinar option. That price will go up after January 30th. Another thing that I'm excited about is that every participant is going to receive we have a farm succession and estate planning for the farm book that the Center for Agricultural Law and Taxation developed. And we just recently recently published the updated book that reflects the 2025 numbers. And so every person is going to get a copy of that. Which goes through a lot of the issues and technicalities of estate and succession planning. We're also going to have sessions that we're going to be teaching that are going to specifically tie to that workbook, so that hopefully becomes a really useful thing for folks to go home with that they can refer back to throughout the year.
Well, it sounds like a great conference, and I think you really explained reasons why people should be attending. And I think this gives people incentive to take those 2 days and really focus in on farm transition if that's a topic they're needing to work on. It sounds like they'll get a lot of work done while they're at the conference.
That's the hope. My hope is that people learn a lot, get their mind really thinking around the process with whatever stage they're in while they're there. And then leave excited for the process. It can be a daunting process, but can also be really exciting. So I'm hoping this empowers and excites people to take the next step for their farm, whatever that step might be.
Thanks for being on our podcast here today. Any last questions from the group or Krishana?
I just hope a lot of our dairy farmers hear this and take advantage of it, because it sounds like Jen said, very useful, very productive, and certainly a need that the industry has. So thank you for putting this conference on, and we wish you a lot of success.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I just think a lot of the farm families that we worked with over the years, just if they would have just did a little bit more kind of pre-planning, they wouldn't maybe have some of the issues that they tend to have later if they don't communicate about them and make plans. So appreciate it.
Don't say that, Larry. I love procrastinating on my problems.
Well, and you hit on something actually that I think is 100% right, because when farmers are entering a business and there's not a plan, I think it's hard to know what the expectations are. It's hard to form expectations for the future, and it can just provide a lot of uncertainty, which is, I think, a lot of unnecessary stress for everybody that's involved. So thanks for bringing that part up.
Well, I'll include the details of the conference in our show notes here today, but I want to thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to visiting with you on the next Dairy News and Views from ISU.
Thank you.
This institution is an equal opportunity provider. For the full non-discrimination statement or combination inquiries, go to www.extension.iastate.edu/diversity/ext.